Hello and welcome to another episode of Yukon State of Mind, the show that aims to foster the conversation about mental health topics in the Yukon, while reducing the stigma of those afflicted with mental health issues. I'm Kim Solonick, and today's episode features Paradise, the new play by Whitehorse's Guanduck Theatre, focusing on mental health issues with a community-based approach, a guest who shares her own challenges in dealing with multiple mental health conditions, and trauma therapist Nataschaa Chatterton shares some tips for grounding during difficult emotional times. But up first, Dr. Gabbar Mate, the best-selling author and expert on topics such as addiction, stress, and childhood development, was in Whitehorse on February 24th. Dr. Mate delivered his talk, The Myth of Normal, to a sold-out house.
The myth of normal. And what I'll be telling you is that everything that we consider to be mental illnesses are actually coping mechanisms. Now, we live in a strange age when it comes to mental illness, so-called. On the one hand, we have in North America the most highly medicated population ever in history and ever in the world. The number of people that are on antidepressants or anti-anxiety pills or antipsychotics, other kind of brain stabilizers is in the multiple of millions, of course, including many, many children. Including we're giving antipsychotics to children, not because they're psychotic, but because we have no other way of controlling their behaviors. And what we've got right now is a vast social experiment in the chemical control of children's brains, because we don't know. I say it's an experiment because we cannot know yet what are going to be the long-term consequences of children on their brain development during adolescence of receiving antipsychotics designed for adult schizophrenics. Hi. But we're so bereft of what else to do that we try to subdue every behavior we're not comfortable with medication. So on the one hand, you have this huge preponderance of psychiatric treatments and diagnoses, and every year new diagnoses are coming up, a new DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, has got new diseases now, internet addiction disorder, and so on. And there was an article today that the pharmaceutical company that came up with a medication supposedly to handle eating disorders, binge eating disorders, also came up with a diagnosis, strangely enough. The article in the New York Times today, which they were able to sell to the medical profession. And what we have is this preponderance of what we call biological psychiatry, by means of which people are diagnosed, and then the belief is that their mental illness is a biological event, and therefore it has to be controlled biologically. Now, the truth is, of course, that, just to be fully transparent here, I've taken medications for mental disorders. I've taken antidepressants, and I'll even tell you that they've helped me. So I'm not here to say that there's nothing biological about addictions, because I know, when I was first took Prozac, and I declare no conflict of interest at all in mentioning it. Nobody's paying me to say this, but when I first took Prozac, within 2 days, within actually half a day, I said, you mean people can feel like this normally? And sometimes you don't know how depressed you are until you're no longer depressed. There was a book written in the 1960s called I've Been Down So Long It Feels Like Up to Me. And that's how it is. Sometimes you don't know just how troubled you've been until you're actually feeling better. So certainly there's something biological about addiction, but that doesn't mean that there's something biological about mental illness in general, including depression, including anxiety, including PTSD, including addiction, including ADHD, but that doesn't mean that these are biological disorders. But in days of biological psychiatry, that's what we do. We medicate people. On the one hand, so on the other hand, we have this preponderance of diagnoses, a lot of people getting treated. On the other hand, there's still this stigma that Kim mentioned around mental illness. So we still have, don't be crazy, or you ought to have your head examined, or crazy as a loon, or you're nuts, or you belong in a loony bin. This kind of stuff. So on the one hand, we have massive over-treatment of the population. On the other hand, we're still shaming people for having issues that are diagnosed as mental illness. A strange, strange dichotomy.
As part of keeping the conversation going, Tamara Perzan joined us and shared her story on how she's learning to cope and live a better life.
My name is Tamara Perzan. I'm 38 years old and I live in Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, and I'm an agoraphobic with post-traumatic stress disorder, cyclical vomiting sickness, anxiety and depression, and those are the basic labels that I was diagnosed with 3 years ago. I use the platform of mental health issues to run for Rendezvous Queen because I have a very strong belief in the Yukon and its culture and community that really provides a unique place to do some healing. And it ties in with Rendezvous because the Rendezvous started as a way to break the winter blues.
1 out of every 4 people are affected by mental health issues. 1 out of every 4. That's a quarter of this room. We now know that the winter blues, also labeled as seasonal depression, are forms of larger, more serious mental health issues. Through Rendezvous, I believe that the Yukon is in a unique position to help effect awesome change in regards to the stigma of mental health issues.
When I first moved here, learning that our whole territory celebrated something like that and just came together in an accepting environment and in celebration and empowerment really struck a chord with me. Especially then when I became diagnosed and moved back to the Yukon, I thought, wow, that's a really interesting opportunity, and it puts the Yukon in a unique position where as a whole we can relate on a very simple level with people who have more chronic and more serious conditions, and if we can relate on a very small avenue like that, then it's easier to have a greater understanding and create a more empowering environment for people like me. One of the coping skills that I use is Dialectic behavior therapy, and that is a course that's offered through the mental health unit here. It's about awareness, acknowledgement, and acceptance. So becoming aware of the different things that affect your thinking. With my experience with Rendezvous and running for Rendezvous Queen, Dialectic behavior therapy really helped with that, as well as some other coping skills. But the experience in itself was extremely boundary pushing, especially as an agoraphobic. To even 3 years ago, I couldn't even check my mail. So now I did something where I'm literally putting myself on a stage in front of complete strangers. That's a very, very, very far cry from what they said I was going to be capable of doing 3 years ago. Being able to put myself in those kinds of high stress situations, I had no choice but to use some of those skills. So when the anxiety starts to build and I start not being able to have an easy time breathing or even speaking because I start to stutter, being able to stop and slow down my breathing and use visualization techniques. So it could be something of like using my kids as motivation, just to, people or something like that, and just took that minute to go, 1, 2, 3, and breathe, and just stepped out and just did it. Even if I was gonna look like a fool, it didn't matter. So getting to use all of those skills was very good because it really solidified for me that those things do work. I'm feeling really good about the way things went, especially with the rendezvous, because it was the first step in a long list of steps for me and what I hope to accomplish with raising awareness for mental health issues.
Gwanduck Theatre in Whitehorse is currently working on a new play that takes a unique community approach to the theme of mental health. We visited their rehearsals to learn more.
My name is Patti Flather, and I'm the Managing Artistic Director of Gwanduck Theatre, and I'm the playwright for Paradise. And this is a brand new play that Gwanduck Theatre with the Empty Space are going to be premiering here in the Yukon this March. This play, Paradise, has been a part of me for many, many years as I try to find ways to tell a story that's about people living with mental health issues, living with trauma, addictions, people living with discrimination based on skin color or perceived country of origin as well. It's about people trying to live with dignity, trying to keep their human spirit, trying to figure out who you are in the world and how to live in a good way. And I think all of us struggle with this in different ways. Certainly a lot of this is personal to me, very personal. I've mental health issues in my family, addictions in my family. It's fictionalized, but for me it's about just really trying to live in the world in a good human way, and how that's really not always easy. Paradise has 4 characters. Wally is an unemployed logger with a war in his head, and a beloved dog, Lucky, who is just his best friend. George is a family doctor, and he's dealing with the breakdown of his marriage. Rachel is a young woman. She's George's daughter, and she's just come back from Central America, and she's really kind of trying to figure out her place in the world. And she's dealing with some issues around addictions. And Khalil is her childhood friend who lived down the street, and he's gone overseas volunteering, and he's kind of gotten caught up in the war on terror. Right now we're rehearsing at the Yukon Art Center studio, and I'm still working on the play. We're still figuring out all of the characters and all of the movement, and we're really inviting the community into the discussion as we create this work. We have really great community partners, the Mental Health Association of the Yukon, Yukon Anti-Poverty Coalition, the Second Opinion Society, and we're also inviting in student groups as well. And everyone who comes into the room is invited to observe and give feedback and ask questions. And it's all about fostering a discussion and a dialogue around issues in our community, around mental health, around addictions, poverty, homelessness, and reducing stigma, and getting all of us more comfortable talking about these issues. As part of our community dialogue, we will have talkback sessions after every show. We're setting up a community focus group with a few people from different parts of the community who will come to a rehearsal and have a discussion around some of the issues related to mental health and other issues that come up in the play. The community focus group is also going to be involved in the talkback after our Thursday evening show on March 26th. We will also see if some of them would like to do some media interviews too and share some of their thoughts. So Paradise runs at the Yukon Art Center main stage from March 24th to 28th at 8 p.m. March 24th is a Tuesday night, and that is pay what you can. So it could be from $0 to $1 million. And then we go to Haines Junction for one show on March 31st at St. Elias Convention Center. And I would invite anyone who cannot afford the show or knows somebody who cannot afford the show ticket to contact us as well, because we want to make the play accessible to people of all income levels. So come on out and see Paradise. This is a play that's about really interesting, quirky people in our community just trying to live their lives in a good way. Sometimes it's not so easy, but there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of hope, and we really invite you and everyone in the community to come out and share this story with us.
We're here with Nataschaa Chatterton, a trauma therapist here in the Yukon. Nataschaa's going to take us through a series of grounding skills today. Welcome, Nataschaa.
Thank you, Kim. It's great to be here.
So, Nataschaa, what are grounding skills?
Grounding skills are different things that we can do that support us to come into the present moment. And how that works in our brain is that means that the cortex part of our brain, the part of the brain right up here, comes online. That's our rational thinking brain. And it supports us to turn off our emotional brain, that place where we're in our fight or flight and protective response mechanism. So those grounding skills allow us to come back into our body and come into the present moment.
What kind of circumstances would I use these grounding skills for?
Well, if you're in a place where you're really fixating on the past or really worrying about things that are coming in the future, feeling really emotionally volatile, up and down, feeling just kind of out of sorts, out of your body, disconnected from what's happening, using these grounding skills as an opportunity to come back into the self and allow some settling and then connecting from the place where you're really whole.
Show me some of these skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So these skills can be done in any environment, and what we're going to go through here is a series of different tools that can be broken apart to use separately as well.
Okay.
So finding yourself in a comfortable seated position, and once again you could be in a standing position, but being in that comfortable place is really what you want to focus on. So find yourself in that space. Yeah, that's it. And just take a couple moments to begin noticing the breath. As the attention draws into the breath, inhale and exhale 3 times. And that's it, not trying to change the breath, just noticing it. Excellent. And beginning to draw the attention down into the feet. For some people that might mean actually looking down into the feet, and here just even pressing the feet into the floor. Noticing if there's any sensation of hot or cold. If you can feel the floor on the base of the foot. Just noticing. Excellent. And then beginning to draw in the imagination. There's a couple options here. Thinking of your favorite tree. And just as that tree has roots that reach deeply into the ground, imagining those roots coming out of your feet, drawing from your legs deeply into the ground, finding that stability, that foundation. And for some people, imagining their favorite mountain and how that mountain has a wide base that firmly roots into the earth. You can imagine the bottom of your body becoming that mountain. Wonderful. And paying attention to the breath one more time. And as you're ready, gently opening the eyes and beginning to look around the room. And with that looking around the room, letting your neck move in both directions. That's it. And paying attention to the details of the room. Really noticing what's here. Wonderful. Great. So Kim, following those exercises, what do you notice in yourself?
Well, I noticed that I was much tenser than I realized until you actually made me focus on it. My body was quite tight, and so by focusing I managed to completely relax my body.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's what these skills can do. And you can take even just one of those pieces, so noticing the breath. By noticing the breath, we bring on the cortex, the rational part of our brain. That's the part of our brain that soothes our emotional center and brings that sense of calming.
And why the feet? Why the focus on the feet?
Excellent question. So the feet, by drawing attention into our feet, our brain automatically traces a line within our body. So it brings us into the body. And often when we're in a state of disarray, our brain exits the body. So by bringing attention into the feet, we have our whole self online again.
And these are exercises that can be done by myself. I don't necessarily need a therapist to take me through this exercise. I could be doing it while I'm driving or waiting for a friend to arrive or any time where I might be feeling tense or just want to ground myself.
Exactly. That's the beauty of each one of these steps. And that part of the imagination, when we imagine the tree or the mountain, what's incredible about our brain is that it doesn't actually know the difference between imagination and reality. So we can use that as a tool, and by imagining ourselves becoming solid and grounded, our body will find the way to do that. The brain connects in to do that. And the interesting thing about looking around the room and taking in details is we have a nerve that connects our brain down our neck into our heart. And that nerve, called the vagus nerve, actually drops our heart rate and brings our parasympathetic, our calming nervous system online. So each one of those components you can use on your own.
Those are wonderful tips. Thank you very much, Nataschaa.
You're very welcome. I hope you have fun using them whenever you need to.
I will, thank you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Yukon State of Mind. Please contact us with any thoughts or comments for future shows. To find out more about the Mental Health Association of Yukon, please join us on Facebook. Until next time, on Yukon State of Mind, I'm Kim Solonick.